Welcome to Shore Support, a program that highlights organizations who enhance the lives of our community through charitable efforts. I'm your host, Nathan Magno, and on today's episode, we'll be discussing empowerment through crisis. The unpredictability of life can throw us into difficult positions beyond our control, and suddenly, we have to take that back. Today, we'll be joined by two guests to talk about finding the strength and support needed to become self-sufficient. Joining us now is Carmen Mora, Program Coordinator of the Displaced Homemakers Program for Ocean County. Thank you for joining us today, Carmen.
Thank you for having me.
So what is the overall mission of the Displaced Homemakers Program, and what are its primary goals?
So the primary goal is self-sufficiency. The program was created by a whole bunch of women that went to Trenton and basically demanded that this program be created. It is a program that's focused on employment and education for women that have been out of the workforce for an extended period of time. They were at home taking care of their families and now become that primary breadwinner due to divorce, separation, domestic violence, death, or disability of the spouse. And we support them throughout this transitional process, empowering them to gain that confidence, get back into the workforce, whether you need more education, just support, any tuition help. Those small things that we don't think about that are required, gaining the confidence. I think it's the most important part of this transition is like, what can I do and how do I do that, and am I able to do it? Our role at the program, the staff, is to provide these services, that support, that cheerleading type of support where, okay, well, this is what we're gonna do. Let's try to figure out what you're gonna be when you grow up. What are your skills?
Right, and especially because, their whole entire world opens up and so many opportunities are available to them, but as well, it becomes very overwhelming. This program exists through Ocean County College. What was the inspiration to establish Displaced Homemakers?
Well, Ocean County College obtained the grant back in 2007 through Counseling and Student Development Services. I believe the name has changed throughout the years, but we are based out of the Counseling Center. So it was considered that this was a much needed program in the county, and we have been here since 2007.
Right, and especially because, as you mentioned before, this program is based on, needing to become financially self-sufficient and needing to become the head of the household all of a sudden. Helping clients become financially self-sufficient after a big life change is that big component. How do you assist with employment trading and applications?
Okay, so it is a process. It's a person-by-person case. It's what do you have to bring right now, and how do we transfer those skills into a resume per se? A lot of them is like, well, I don't know how to do that. Well, what have you done? Volunteer work counts too. That's work. Those are skills. Analyzing all of that. What are your needs? What are your goals? What do you, through a series of assessments and different workshops, all that, we try to figure out what the best fit is for that person. Whether it's financial. Now you have to go back to school, work at the same time. What fits your lifestyle right now, and what are your barriers? So focusing on all of that and helping them also find a career that meets their needs and that they want to do, because why get into a career you don't love? Right. And at that time, the majority of the women that we get in the program are over the age of 40. So starting all over after 40 is very hard. Certainly. So what's the reality of it? Let's explore that. Like, would you like to go into a 6-year degree or a certification? Certification with 9 months, and you can start working and earning wages. And how do we build from there? We want to see that number go up. So where did you start, and how do we make that number go up? Right. To give them those needed building blocks to get to that career. Yes. What is your program offered to displaced homemakers looking to go back to school and further their education? So we do have career counseling, of course, and tuition assistance. I think that's one of the major supports that we have, is that tuition assistance. Although it's not for credit courses, because I wouldn't say 95% of the women in the program do qualify for financial aid, is the tuition assistance for the certification. So any short-term certification, and being that we still have the funding, because we are a grant, we provide that tuition assistance for example, a medical assisting certificate or a billing and coding certificate. We would provide that tuition for them, and that support,
Right.
whatever their needs are.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful.
It is.
And your program also offers health and wellness support, mental health care, and counseling. Can you expand upon these services and how improving mental health can lead to success?
Well, absolutely. If you are not fully there, if you are experiencing, obviously after this transition, and depending on what the case was, but I do want to say that the majority of the women have experienced some type of domestic violence. So that takes a toll on you, and processing all of that before you can focus on a career is important. So that linkage it's number one. They do have access to the counseling center here at OCC, which is amazing. That's short term, and then from there there's that ongoing services if they needed that linkage to ongoing services throughout the county, and just providing them with as much resources as we can so that they can get the help that they need in whichever area of their life
Right.
they need to. So.
And especially because a lot of the difficulties that they face, it's again overwhelming. They have to manage it at multiple points. Can you share some success stories and the impact that the program has had on your clients?
Well, I'm very proud to say that I am one of those stories. I went to the program myself. I experienced a series of events in my life that placed me in that situation, and I went through the program myself, and again received all of the support here on campus through the program, and here I am now. So I think that's a story that like, I can say it myself. The program works. And aside from that, we have several women we serve over 100 women every year.
Right.
And they can say that this program has helped me with, whether it's that emotional support and still working towards the transition of what I need to do to become economically self-sufficient, or women that have graduated the program say like, hey, like, you know what, I don't need the services anymore. I'm doing okay.
Right.
And they have really good jobs. They have careers. They have advanced and come back and let us know.
Right.
And it's amazing to see that. We have women in a lot of important positions around the county. And it's great to see that they come back and provide that same support to other women.
Right. What advice would you give for someone who is looking to take that first step in asking for support?
Ask. It's very hard to ask for help when you have been through whatever situation you have been through. For us as human beings, it's very hard to ask for help and admit that we need help.
Right.
Asking for that, and I think it's more of the person that's asking, the person that's there listening, and it's so important to place yourself in their shoes and meet them where they're at. You know, like somebody could be ready to start school tomorrow, somebody could be ready in 5 years.
Right.
So it's the person is just, it takes, the average displaced homemaker reaches out at least 5 times before our initial meeting. So it's what my advice would be, you know, just get back out there, because what's the worst that could happen is somebody says no, but you at least you created that connection.
Right.
And you know it's out there.
And especially they have that knowledge that there's a community at their back.
And that's so important.
Certainly. And your program works with various organizations, including Providence House,
Yes.
who we will hear from shortly. Can you tell us more about these partnerships?
So it's a coordination of services. We do receive a lot of referrals from Providence House, and they'll determine whether the person, you know, like that they're ready for this, and give us that referral. And that has created a partnership I believe ever since the program was established here. So we do work very closely with Providence House and support each other on like how can we help as many women as we can.
Right.
We have the support of other organizations throughout the county that understand what being a displaced homemaker is, and assist us with providing the resources or the information of employment that's available there. Like let's help with hiring as many displaced homemakers as we can. We have created those relationships throughout the county, and it's been it's been a lot, and it's been positive for us. And we do receive a lot of donations because we are a grant. We are a grant from the Department of Children and Families through the Division on Women, and it's limited.
Right.
So whatever we can get from those community partners, it helps a lot.
Certainly.
It can make a difference.
It can make a huge difference just simply being able to give back to that community.
Exactly.
What are the most common barriers that participants face during the transition process?
I think it's not only participants, I think it's a lot of people throughout the country that we have noticed is homelessness. It has been a problem, and it's been more noticeable throughout the past few years. I think COVID really had an impact on homelessness in our county, but a lot of the calls that I do get are people that need a place to live. And during that transition, it's like you either lose your house or have to find somewhere to go. It depends on the situation, but homelessness is one of the major barriers that we have. I mean, if you don't have an address, how do you apply for a job?
Certainly.
If you don't have an address, how do you get services from other agencies? It's like, it's all that. Like, how do you transition when you don't have anywhere to go? Right.
So if someone does need that help, how would they qualify for your support services?
So that's not in the eligibility criteria. So we do try to link people as much as we can to the resources around the county, and try to help them through the application process if we can. We try to get as much information as we can on what's available, who has funding, who doesn't, what's out there, what's not, and just support them through the process. It's like it might not be a solution, and we might not have, again, the solution to that problem per se, but having that person there with you, it helps.
Right. Because again, it's just having that one person to guide you along that transition is certainly one of the biggest boons that one can have.
Right.
So where can our viewers find more information about your organization?
Through the Ocean County College website, search bar Displaced Homemakers. That'll bring us right to the page. There's also information on the Local 211 website, through the Department of Human Services. There's information on there. Just Google. Google will bring you right to the Ocean County College website as well, but there is all the information that's required there. There is a self-assessment that the person can take, and it brings the information through the office, and we can contact the person.
Understood. Go on to Ocean County College and find it through the Displaced Homemakers Program page.
Correct.
Well, Carmen, thank you for taking the time to be here with us today.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm very grateful for this opportunity to let people know that the program is here, and they were trying to help as many women as we can.
Right, and your insight is very much valuable for this community.
Thank you.
We'll continue our discussion with Lori Toole of Providence House Domestic Violence Services right after this.
Everyone has a ritual. That small thing to keep us focused. A habit we never skip. To clear our minds and elevate our performance. But what do you do to keep your head in the game? To drown out the self-doubt and support your mental health. Maybe you surround yourself with positivity. Or you need to center yourself. Because being your best isn't just about taking care of your body. It's about taking care of your mind and mental health. Discover the resources you need to keep your mind focused and your mental health a priority.
Welcome back to Shore Support. I'm Nathan Magno, and with me now is Lori Toole, Community Affairs and Education Manager for Providence House Domestic Violence Services. Thank you, Lori, for coming out today.
Thank you for having me. Happy to be here.
So what is the overall mission of the Providence House Ocean County?
We actually have two missions because we are part of Catholic Charities, Diocese of Trenton. So we have a larger mission to really support anybody going through trauma or adversity. We serve 4 different counties with so many different programs, and Providence House is just one of those. We have Providence House in both Ocean and Burlington counties, but there's a domestic violence agency in every county. When it comes to the mission of Providence House, in a nutshell, it's really to end domestic violence. And we want to do that through supportive services in a way that feels really safe and accessible to survivors.
Right, and especially because ending that cycle of abuse starts with education. What options are there for different age groups when learning to protect yourself and your loved ones?
We've got a lot of different programming at Providence House. I would say our primary goal all of the time is to safety plan. Whether that is the first phone call to our hotline, or if it's the 4th, 5th session in that somebody's attending with us at our outreach location. Safety planning is so important for survivors, and it can change over time. If someone made a safety plan last month, their safety plan might need to change today. And I think what's important to remember is when somebody's choosing to leave a domestic violence relationship, that is often the most dangerous time for them. The risk of harm goes through the roof, and we want to make sure that if someone's choosing to leave, that they are really getting their safety plan together and that they feel safe. Domestic violence is about a pattern of power and control. And I think there's this sort of misconception. I hear people say, why wouldn't someone just leave? And it is so much more complicated than that. There are so many pieces that affect a survivor's choice of whether or not to leave, and safety is such a big part of that. So we want people to kind of understand that there's this pattern of power and control where physical abuse may not even exist, and someone might just be questioning, themselves of why is this so hard? Why do I feel unsafe in my own home or in my relationship?
Right. And what's really nice is that you also have this 24-hour hotline for those looking for that safety immediately. And they also provide a DVRT program and safe housing. But especially with 24 hours, time is a vital factor when battling domestic violence.
100%.
Can you tell us more about these emergency services?
Sure. So we have our 24-hour hotline. Like you said, there is always a staff member there to answer the phone, to talk to a survivor who is calling. So we kind of consider that the gateway into our services, right? We've got that hotline. It's always available. And someone might be calling our hotline because they're looking for safe shelter. So if they're eligible for our shelter, once they make that call, we're going to be talking with them, safety planning with them, like I talked about before. And once they come into shelter, it may be where they need to come in immediately. They're fleeing a really unsafe situation. It's not safe to go back home and get their things. So in our shelter, we provide all the necessities: toiletries, food, clothing. They might just be coming in with the clothing on their back. And we want to make sure that they feel safe so that they're not worrying about these pieces of survival, shelter, food, clothing, so they can really start to work on healing. What's my next step?
Right. And that healing is offered for all different ages, including for programs for children, adults, and seniors. Can you tell us more about these services?
Sure. So we have a lot of wraparound services. So basically we consider those anything that's not happening, within the safe house, because the safe house, the shelter, we kind of use that term interchangeably. They will provide counseling as well. They'll have advocates who work with them in the shelter. Anyone not coming into our shelter, we have our location in Whiting where they can come for counseling. So we provide both individual and group counseling. Again, we're doing safety planning, a lot of psychoeducational support, and a lot of connection to the community. That's what happens there. We also house 2 therapy programs in our location in Whiting. Our outreach is what we call it. And there we have our PALS program. That's where I started 15 years ago at Providence House as a music therapist. So that's a creative arts therapy program to help children heal from witnessing domestic violence. So we have that program, as well as an additional therapy program. It's called TREE, which stands for Trauma, Recovery, Empowerment, and Education. That program is specifically for clients who've experienced sexual violence within their intimate partner relationship. So they're experiencing domestic violence, and sexual violence happens to be one of those components.
Right.
Yeah.
And all these programs are open to all different ages.
Absolutely. So we have our children's program, which starts at 3, which I know it's hard sometimes to find those services for kids that young, but using the creative arts avenue can be really helpful, I think, without, they're healing in the language that they speak, through creativity. At our outreach, we also have programming for clients over 60. Often there's a different dynamic. Somebody might be coming to us where they've experienced a marriage for 50 years, where they're just coming forward for services and having experiencing domestic violence for the majority of their lives. Other times we have older adults who are experiencing abuse from their adult child. So we really want to make sure that we are providing the support that's tailored to everybody walking through the door.
Right,
Yeah.
at all different life stages and circumstances. What advice would you offer to someone experiencing domestic violence who is ready to take that first step toward improving their situation?
I would say safety plan and connect. Call us or call your local domestic violence agency. There's one in every county. Get connected as much as you can. If you call a hotline and the only thing you do in your first step is to safety plan, it's a step in the right direction. It can be incredibly frightening for clients.
And especially because that's been like the big word for Providence House is that safety planning. What is safety planning exactly?
So safety planning really differs depending on each individual. We do individualized safety plans. Some things that we might encourage people to do is just, making sure your cell phone's fully charged, making sure you have access to all your important documents in case you need to flee quickly. There's a lot of different ways that we can support folks in figuring out what is your safety plan. And then sitting with them and saying, who are your connections? Where would you go if this were to happen? What would you do? Who would you contact? What are you concerned about not having access to? Do you have access to funds? Can you put gas in the car? So that can be something that's part of an individual safety planning, depending on what the person is going through at the moment.
Right. And is Providence House able to help an individual develop that safety plan?
Yes. Yeah, we're doing that from the point of entry on the phone, their first time they're calling the hotline, to all of their sessions. We're checking in on safety all the time because those risks change.
Right,
depending
especially
on what's going on.
But kind of like whenever that person needs to get up and go, they have at least that plan to get to somewhere where they're safe and that they can properly heal.
Absolutely.
But for those who are more hesitant to disclose their cycle of abuse, how can someone choose the best support team for themselves and their families?
So I think that's a great question because hesitancy and fear are huge factors in sharing what's going on. Sometimes it's incredibly hard to even admit to yourself that you're in a relationship that has where there's a domestic violence component. No, I want people to know they're not alone. You're not alone in feeling that fear, that hesitation. It can be very scary to start talking about that. So people can call our hotline anonymously. I think one of the greatest components of healing is connection. Sometimes people say, oh, I wouldn't want to burden my friend or my family member. If you know someone that you can trust, and you can have that conversation where you feel like that's a safe way to talk about what's going on, get connected, get reconnected if you can. Most people want to help, right? That's the environment, the society that we're in.
Right.
And sometimes people feel like they might be burdening someone else. And if we can take that away and say, I think there's probably someone in your circle that wants to help.
Right. And especially because you mentioned previously about people not understanding the full picture behind domestic violence. And why not just leave? What are usually some of the deeper issues that cause someone to be stuck within those cycles of abuse?
There are a lot of components. Financial abuse is a huge one. Sometimes someone's credit may be destroyed. They may not be able to get their own home, or get a mortgage, or get, a rental. They may not have access to bank accounts. They may have been out of the workforce for a very long time, keeping them from, being able to step out. Also, we don't know what kind of threats somebody has experienced. So stepping away when you know the potential threats of what this person has said they might do can be so incredibly frightening. And we understand that. Our job is never to tell someone to leave a domestic violence relationship. Our job is to safety plan and provide options and support and safety. That's really what we want to do.
Right. And earlier, we spoke with our Displaced Homemakers program here at Ocean County College, which your organization works with.
Yes.
Can you speak on some of the projects you two have worked on together.
Absolutely. So Displaced Homemakers is one of the connections we've got in the community that we really value. We have an affiliation agreement with them, which we've got with lots of different community partners. Again, connection is so important for healing, so we want to connect to as many agencies as we can. Displaced Homemakers, we have a really long-standing relationship with. They actually have come to our location, I can't tell you how many times, and have provided information to our staff, to our clients, and they've actually stayed in the building to get clients signed up for their program.
Whoa.
And when we're talking about financial abuse, you know, not having to put an extra $10, $20, $30 of gas in the car to go to yet another location to get what you need is invaluable. Like it really is, it makes a huge impact, something that small. So we've been able to work collaboratively with them for a long time, and we appreciate them.
And can you share with us some of your success stories or times you've seen the positive impact of your organization?
Sure. We see often that people have experienced like the intergenerational cycle of violence. Their parents, their grandparents, you know, they know that it's happened over many generations within their families. And we see people who are coming forward to say, you know what, I want this to change. I don't want this to continue. I want a healthier, safer life for myself and my children. October is Domestic Violence Awareness Month, so we're just, you know, heading into that very, very soon. So we also have a really special event. It's just for our survivors at our, you know, our outreach location where people share their stories. And we've got survivors in the room who have the opportunity to hear from someone who maybe is in a very different period of healing from what they've experienced. And I think it can be so powerful where someone can say, oh my gosh, I'm where they were a year ago or 2 years ago, and look, there's hope. Mm-hmm. There's hope and there's healing and there's better days ahead where I don't have to be looking over my shoulder and feeling fearful all the time.
Right.
Yeah.
And especially because I want to touch back on that idea where those who may be unable to speak out, what words would you give to that person so that they can take the first step in being able to resolve their situation?
Connect. Get connected. Mm-hmm. I mean, I think isolation is one of the most dangerous pieces of what can happen over time in a domestic violence relationship. And sometimes it may feel impossible to connect based on, you know, the power and control somebody might be experiencing. So whatever ways somebody may want to connect, you know, if they can't get to us, we're going to figure out a way. We're going to be able to talk to them on the phone. You know, for some of our programming, we do provide telehealth as well. We want to get people connected in the safest way possible.
Right. To be involved in the community so that they know that they have someone to support them in their time of need.
Mm-hmm. And don't worry about having to make a decision just because you're reaching out for help.
Right. So how can our viewers volunteer with or donate to your organization?
They can call me. So that's something I manage within, you know, at Providence House. We accept donations, new food, new unexpired food, clothing, toiletries, you name it. We take those 9 to 4 Monday through Thursday and 9 to 3 on Fridays at our location in Whiting. Mm-hmm. And if they want to volunteer, we've got lots of great volunteer opportunities. We have a domestic violence response team, which is a 40-hour training to go out and support clients in police stations, hospitals when they've experiencing domestic violence. And then we've got a load of other volunteer opportunities at our location in Whiting. So they can contact me and I'd be happy to talk them through what we've got going on.
Nice. And so where can they find more information if they want to follow up on that?
So Catholic Charities has a website, CatholicCharitiesTrenton.org. And then we are also on Facebook, Instagram, and we've got a YouTube page as well. That's all Catholic Charities. So you'll see all of our programming that we've got in Catholic Charities in those 4 counties. And then if you click on domestic violence on our website, you'll get more information about Providence House.
That's awesome. Yeah. Thank you for your time today, Lori.
Thank you.
We would also like to thank both of our guests for providing insight in how we can surmount such struggles. Remember, there will always be that silver lining hiding behind gray skies. And we encourage you to take up the opportunity in immediately applying what we learned here today and being more gracious to ourselves during changes of circumstance. For Shore Support, I'm Nathan Magno, and thank you for watching.